Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're just going to let you come in. We know there's a fair few people coming in for this. Welcome. Okay, just as you're coming in. Good stuff. Okay, so welcome. We're going to start bang on time. We know you're all busy people. I'm just going to kick us off and I'll introduce you to Richard, who I know a lot of you know already. Just 1 second and I will share my screen. Oh, we've got 40 people coming. That's great. That's a good turnout. Good turnout. We were just discussing the kind of the people who register versus the people who turn up to these things. We've got a good proportion today. And rightfully so. Lots of goodies in this one. So if I just share my screen and we'll get kicked off. Okay, so welcome everybody to Law Firms Turn AI Anxiety into Action. So we've got two of us here today with you. So I'm Heather Murray. I'm founder of a company called AI For Non-Techies, and we specialise in teaching professional services firms how to use AI, particularly Copilot. That's an area that we specialise in. And Richard, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Heather. Yes, I'm Richard Dawson. I'm an AI. I'm an AI strategic counsel to law firm leaders. I help them with the topic of AI governance and compliance, which is definitely becoming a thing. And I've been helping legal and professional services leaders grow for about 35 years or so now. And I act really as the translator, I think, between law firm leaders and tech implementation. I think that's how I see myself.
A very useful person to know as well. So if you have questions for us, we'll have time at the end. So could you please put them into the Q&A section, not the chat, the Q&A, and we will pick them up from there and we will go through and answer them. So Richard on your compliance and me on your training needs as well. Should be able to handle that between us, and just general AI questions. Both Richard and I are in an AI mastermind, and so we're both huge AI buffs. So if you have any general generative AI questions, please do ask us. Okay. Right. So the agenda for today is we're going to look at where law firms really are with AI, and actually just taking a little sample of this chat right now. We've got nearly 50 people in this chat now, from various different sizes of law firms. So I would really like to ask you a couple of questions and find out where you are, the tools you're using, because it can feel like everybody is very, very much ahead. It feels like a lot of people are really sorted with all things AI, but our experience, I'm sure Richard, you'd agree, our experience of actually working with firms has shown us that a lot of people are just very much at the beginning of their journey. People are hesitating. We want to talk about why your hesitation was and is justified. The regulatory walls closing in, how you can move from that hesitation to actually a controlled AI adoption, and then what becomes possible when you do that. And then we're going to talk about, of course, your next steps for AI adoption as well. So for a couple of questions I would like to ask, so we can just answer these directly in the chat. Give me a letter. Where would you put yourself? Where's your firm right now when it comes to your AI journey? So would you say, A, you haven't started and feel left behind? Would you say B, approved a tool, but the uptake has been low? We find this is very, very common here. C, small pockets of enthusiasts. So you might have just a small bunch of people who are really into their AI, but the majority of people are not. Or D, you're using AI regularly across the firm and you've got it in your everyday workflow. So where are you? And if you're anything other than this, do let us know. I'm seeing an awful lot of C's. C's coming in. All C's, exclusively C's so far. So lots of small pockets of enthusiasts. I see this a lot actually myself. Lots of people where there's these group of people who really, really into their AI, but they don't have an AI policy to work with. So they're actually just experimenting with tools like ChatGPT and Claude outside of their environment. And then they tend to kind of have Copilot at work potentially, or maybe nothing at all to use. So it's a bit of a strange time really for all this possibility, but no kind of set rules to work with yet. Okay, so yeah, majority C's, and then we've got a B and a C from John as well. So this room, the fact you're in this room, you're skewed more towards the middle. But if you notice, there's not a single D here, and that is reflective of what I've actually said too. Second question for you. What tool do you use the most at work? Not at home, not in your experimentation, but what do you use at work within your firm? If you have an approved tool, what have you got? I would love to know. Is it ChatGPT? The one, of course, everybody's heard of. The one that even my older mum and dad have heard of. They've heard of a bit of ChatGPT. It's got the most press coverage. Claude, So the lesser known but very, very capable one. If you're into Claude, you're kind of in this bit of club that everybody absolutely adores it and everything it can do. We've got a couple of different ones here. So we've got LexisNexis is one, Legora, Gemini. So Google's powerful one. We all know Google. They've got their version 2, and then Copilot, the one built into work tools. Which ones are we using here? If you're not
Be,
using any, just put none.
be interesting to hear. I've seen people putting some of the legal tools. It's interesting to see that as well. I think interesting
Mhm.
to know if anybody is using Harvey, if anyone is using co-counsel, things like that. It'd be
Yeah.
always interesting to hear about those too. But we're going to be focusing on these very well-known tools today. But
Yeah. So yeah, John's saying we have test teams looking at Copilot, Wordsmith, and Ask iManage as well. Harvey, yeah, very, very
it's
expensive, but
very expensive.
powerful. Powerful. Yeah, so we've got a couple of Copilots. So I'm not seeing any Chat GPTs, Claudes, Geminis. But yeah, a couple of Copilots in there as well. Okay. Yeah, so this reflects, yeah, what our experience here. And I say you've got your specialist legal tools, and then you've got these kind of broader tools as well that are kind of popping up in your ecosystem too. So I found most of the firms we work with have a Microsoft ecosystem, so Copilot comes up quite a lot there. Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. So what's actually happening, what I've found in working with firms, me and my training teams have found that we've got this sort of shadow AI situation. So whether or not you've approved a tool in your firm, your people are already using it. So, and this is probably the majority of cases. I find this across professional services as well, actually, pretty much across all the sectors that we work in. It's a very, very prominent problem, and it's called shadow AI. So, this is when people are using unsanctioned AI tools for work situations. Now, this can cause all sorts of problems in that they are putting work information in, confidential client information, getting amazing results, but they're unaware of the fact that this could then leak private data. Then they've not got properly private, secure subscriptions when they're using it. So whether or not you've approved an AI tool, your people are already using it. Most people using something in their back pocket at home. ChatGPT, it's on your phone. Why wouldn't you use it? It's this powerful tool. So this is a big, big thing that's happening right now, shadow AI. The Copilot creator, so this, for those people who've got Copilot, there's a big thing that's happening. So it's called the Crater of Disappointment. Nice dramatic name there. So Copilot did a study of 30,000 people that used Copilot, and they found there's people join, you get Copilot, it's rolled out formally in the firm, but 80% of people drop off after just 3 weeks, and they return to doing things the way they used to before. So there's many reasons for that, but the people that continue to use it, that 20% are people that know that AI is something to be managed. It's kind of like managing a new, very talented and intelligent employee. For others, they saw it as a kind of novel tool, but they never really could link it in with their workflows. So there's and they didn't feel safe using it as well. So there's a couple of really big important blocks missing there. The training hasn't stuck, so a lot of people roll out with something like the Copilot's own training, which is very theoretical. This button does this button does that, but actually it isn't linked into your actual workflows. It's not properly focused as well, so it's too focused on Copilot's features, but not on the benefits for you as a fee earner or as a a member of the support team as well. There are very, very specific use cases, and you don't all need to use all features as well. So the training for these tools that comes out is actually poor. Microsoft Copilot's own team had trouble actually then integrating Copilot themselves. So that says an awful lot about the quality of training that's available from the Copilot team. And then most staff still don't know. I hear this all the time. You don't know what you don't know. How can you possibly start to kick off using AI properly? First of all, if you don't feel safe, but second of all, if you don't know what's possible. So I'm going to show you a few demos a little bit later on as to some of the things that you can do. And then we've got Copilot as the main tool, so I'm going to keep the demos on there too. So this is, sort of a bit of an overview of what's happening right now. But they're all symptoms of this same thing. We've got a real governance gap, and this is what Richard's going to talk about in just a second. So there's a gap where firms are, of course, and where you need to be. And we're all aware of this, increasingly aware of it. But it isn't about technology. We've got the technology. A lot of the time we're there, we're waiting. We've usually got the free Copilot and we're waiting for the kind of the use cases to roll out the paid version. But it's governance. There's no practical foundations. It's not about having heavy-handed policies. It's not about pushing more AI use underground and into that shadow AI space. It's about governance, and Richard is going to take us through that. So I will be your driver of the slides. Let me know when you want to change.
Yes, thank you, Heather. Yes. Okay, so I think I'm start really up with the thing I hear a lot from law firms I talk to, and that's they are hesitant about AI. In my view, though, they are right to be hesitant about it because not because AI is dangerous, but because you are operating in a regulated environment, and regulated environments have consequences. So have consequences for your clients, for your practicing certificate potentially, and for your firm's reputation. And those are things that are all hard earned. So as Heather was saying, there many of you have invested in AI tools, Copilot licenses being the classic one. Probably done some training, but probably not very good training in many cases. And there's things that make you hesitate about going further, about rolling it out more widely, about letting fee earners use it on live client work without restrictions. And that's good professional judgment. It's wise. It's not being timid or behind the curve. It's professional judgment. So if you hold on to that thought, because I'm going to show you why that's the right instinct, but also more importantly, what to do about it so you can grow with confidence. As Heather said, the thing that changes the picture a bit in terms of the need to act is the fact that your staff haven't hesitated. Many of them have found tools that worked, free tools, the personal apps on their phone, etc. And that's the problem that Heather was talking about before, which is shadow AI. Next slide, please. Yes, so as we said, shadow AI is what happens when shadow AI is really what happens when a firm hasn't provided its people with the right governance, with approved, accessible AI tools, or if it has provided approved tools, it hasn't made them easy to use on a day-to-day basis, possibly because it hasn't provided the right training or the tools are not very good. So fee earners that maybe need to draft a client email quickly, they might use their ChatGPT account on their phone. Paralegal might want to summarize a long document. They're in a hurry, they upload it to a free tool they found online, etc. None of them think they're doing anything wrong. It's not malicious, they're just trying to do their jobs well. And like most of us humans, they like to find shortcuts, an easy way to do things. But of course, that means that that data is passing through a platform that nobody in your firm has assessed or approved, or perhaps in some cases you may not even know is being used and exists. One thing it's worth bearing in mind here as well is that many of you will be working, if you do have any kind of policy on governance, it will probably be an honor-based policy, an acceptable use policy that you've discussed with your colleagues and circulated. Often I've seen quite a few where they use the word co-pilot in that acceptable use policy. Now, effectively, Copilot has become a generic category. It's become a Hoover or a Kleenex. And Microsoft Copilot, which is what we know well, actually did actually try to protect the name Copilot unsuccessfully. So that's becoming a generic term. So bear in mind that if you do have an acceptable use policy, you may have said that you may use Copilot. And what you mean by that is that they may use the secure 365 enterprise version of Copilot, but what the fee earner might think is to use any AI accessible Copilot. So that's a semantic point that might create a different level of data risk. And using the use of shadow AI and unsecured tools, of course, potentially creates a liability automatically from an ICO point of view, a data protection point of view, Article 32 of GDPR, I think it is, and not knowing that your stuff we're using, technically speaking, is not a defense. So the other thing to bear in mind here is also a legal privilege aspect to this as well. The moment that a fee earner pastes client data or instructions or case details into a public AI tool, that information has been effectively into a public tool that's effectively been shared with a third party, a company that has data retention policies and no duty of confidence to your client. So that's an external form of contamination that you need to be wary of. But even with an enterprise tool like Copilot, if, for example, your SharePoint permissions haven't been configured correctly to mirror your firm's ethical walls, Copilot will index everything. So for an example, there would be a fee earner in family law asking Copilot to draft a letter could inadvertently draw on confidential commercial litigation files, and that could potentially contaminate privilege. So not in that case by shadow AI, which is another risk, but also because of your own approved tools are misconfigured. Some of you will be aware already that there is US case law on this topic. There's a case called United States versus Hepner, which was February this year. A federal court ruled that communications with Claude were not protected by attorney-client privilege. Now, there hasn't been a UK test case yet, but I'm sure nobody on this webinar wants to be part of that. So as I said, your instinct to hesitate before going further is absolutely right. The question, of course, is what those foundations look like in practice. Next slide, please, Heather. So there are four distinct forces. We've rather ominously called them the four walls closing in, but don't be too intimidated. All regulatory environments are developing for AI in the same way that 25, 30 years ago, the regulatory and legal frameworks for using the internet developed. It's only inevitable that these things are going to happen. So the first of these is the Civil Justice Council. Heather and I planned this webinar beautifully because the Civil Justice Council consultation closes today, which is actually a coincidence, I have to say. We didn't manage to work it out. But anyway, there's a Civil Justice Council consultation on the use of AI in court documents. And there is a proposal, and we'll see what happens, what comes out for a consultation process for an enhanced statement of truth that requires litigators to declare their AI use and confirm, the critical thing here is confirm the verification procedures were followed. So the issue here is that we're moving from a world of honor-based compliance to proof-based compliance. And I think that is the direction of travel we're talking about here with the enhanced statement of truth. So confirming AI use and verification procedures. There's some specific proposals. Some of this is going to be interesting to see how we can actually achieve this, that AI has not been used to generate the content, including by altering, embellishing, strengthening, diluting, or rephrasing the evidence. That's an interesting one. So not just AI writing statements from scratch, any AI involvement in that language, but I think the critical thing here is supervision and proof of how and why AI was used. It's not saying don't use AI at all, but it's relating specifically to the enhanced statement of truth. So statement of truth, of course, carries a personal liability, not firm liability. So if you're a litigant, so signing on AI and unverified AI content makes it into a filing means you could be looking at potential contempt proceedings. So the privilege point, of course, also connects in the Hepner case. That communication with Claude was not protected by attorney-client privilege. The legal fundamentals of privilege are not materially different in that respect. So regulators, we all know about the regulators, we think. SRA, the Solicitors Regulation Authority, has some clarity, some fairly long-standing clarity actually on Rule 4.2, which is you must treat an AI co-pilot, and that's in the generic sense of the word co-pilot, with the same rigorous oversight as a day one trainee. There isn't a reputable tool exemption for that. So if you've managed to shell out for Harvey, for example, that doesn't exempt you from that requirement. The standard is the output, and your firm owns that. So the ICO has also published guidance, which many of you will be aware of, that every data controller must assess their AI tools in terms of the processing of personal data, that it's on the usual compliance aspects. There are lawful basis, data minimization, third-party processing agreements. So again, if you've got fee earners using consumer AI tools on client documents, you've got potentially a GDPR exposure and breach. And then we come to the FCA. In October last year, the government confirmed that the FCA will become the single professional services supervisor for anti-money laundering. A number of you will be aware of that. They will replace the SRA, the Solicitors Regulation Authority, as the AML role, although I think there will still be an aspect of which the SRA will be, you will still be responsible to the SRA for conduct matters. I think a lot of the serious breaches we've seen in terms of SRA compliance have been client money related. So I don't think you're going to see the end of the SRA's rule, but the FCA brings a whole new dimension to the topic of client monies. So the SRA, as most of you will know, is a guidance-led regulator. And it's fair to say, I think, that the FCA is an enforcement machine, really. So, for example, the FCA rejected 44% of firm applications in 23-24, and the SRA, we didn't reject any. That probably tells you the tone and teeth that the FCA will probably bring to this particular area. I've referenced on the slide there 20 fines of up to 20% of revenue. I just want to caveat that in that hasn't been determined exactly what that is going to be, but it's probably going to be a specific percentage of revenue, and certainly a different league to anything that the SRA has ever imposed. So if your governance framework that you have now doesn't produce auditable human-in-the-loop oversight of AML workflows, it probably won't survive FCA scrutiny, and you could face dual regulation, FCA for AML and the SRA for conduct. And then finally, we have insurers and your clients. So the moment professional insurance indemnity, which is a big topic for most of you, that market is still quite a soft market. In other words, renewal, and the big renewal round is in October, should be okay this year. We should be. But the reason for that the market is still soft from an AI compliance point of view, is primarily because AI is still generative. So it's human created, so it's humans copying and pasting fundamentally. But as Heather will probably be showing you with some of the processes that exist in a tool like Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, agentic AI is well and truly here. And these are systems that take actions autonomously without human intervention. And so therefore there is a particular regulatory concern that's going to come there. And almost certainly, most of you can see what's coming. I think what you're going to see is some big negligence claims coming out of autonomous AI processes. And then we'll see the insurance market will probably harden quite significantly. Whether that happens before October 2026, hopefully not, but it could. So brokers are already starting to ask AI questions. The ones I've spoken to say certainly starting to ask AI questions away from the traditional honor-based policy question, which many of them have been asking until recently, but into how do you have a documented framework and can you prove it? Commercial client-wise, procurement panels are inserting AI governance clauses. Welsh Government has inserted some into their panel work for solicitors. NHS frameworks, they want documented oversight and technical controls in terms of AI governance. So even if you're the incumbent, I think what you're going to find is that procurement panels are going to start asking for provable human in the loop. They're going to be asking for things like network logs that demonstrate technical controls. And if you can only provide them with an acceptable use honor-based policy, you might be struggling to continue with them. So, four walls. None of them are saying don't use AI, though. All of them are saying build the foundations first, and that's what I want to talk about next. So, next slide, please. So, just to be clear, every one of the four pressures I've talked about have the same answer. That's the good news. There isn't a whole series of different compliance exercises and governance exercises that you need to go through for each regulator as such. There are not really four separate work streams. It's one governance framework, which if you build it properly, it should be able to satisfy all of them simultaneously. So the courts, for example, want an audit of human oversight. The SRA wants supervised output. The FCA wants documented AML workflows with sign-off, human sign-off. And your insurers are going to want an evidence-based framework. Procurement clients are going to see technical controls documentation in some cases as well. They're all asking the same thing, just in a different language, really. Auditable, documented, human-in-the-loop guidance. But build it once, and it should work well and build some solid foundations. Next slide, please, Helen. So, compliance is what you do because you have to, what you must do, and we've talked about some aspects there before, they're the obligations that we see from regulators like the SRA, the ICO, the FCA, your insurers, and commercial and government panels. Governance, of course, is hinting a little bit back to what Heather was saying earlier. Governance is how your firm decides what to do. Who's got the authority to approve AI tools? Who's accountable when something goes wrong? What verification looks like in practice? And as I said, whether you can prove it. And proof is becoming the theme, I think, of governance compliance. So in my experience, talking to the firms I've talked to, most firms don't have either in place properly. They have bits. And I think one of the things I've noticed is that most people, most managing partners I've spoken to say things to me like, our IT team handles that. Our IT team handles that. So IT, of course, does manage the tools, and your MSP manages infrastructure, and they can block websites, and they can set firewalls to restrict applications and apps and lock down devices. But that in itself isn't really governance. Governance sets the decisions that sit above the technical configuration. Who decides what AI tools are permitted on client work? Who's signing off the AI assisted outputs? Who's accountable by name, not necessarily the fee earner as default. And they're not really IT decisions, as Heather was saying before, these are leadership decisions. And in most firms, in my experience of the people I've spoken to, nobody has made them yet. Probably if you go to some of the very large firms, the Magic Circle firms, they absolutely have made that, those decisions. So if you think about a pilot, pilots love flying, and they don't run pre-flight checklists because they're afraid of the plane. They run it because the checklist, it gives them that permission to enjoy the flight. And that's really how I see your governance framework, that checklist, not the brakes, but what gives you permission, to mix my metaphors with automotive, not the brakes, but what gives permission to accelerate. Next slide, please, Helen. So the key thing is here is building foundations, not for now. The government's foundations you build now are not about satisfying today's pressures, which are constantly changing. They're about building for the future. So many of you will have heard of a standard of ISO 42001, which is the international standard for AI management systems. And large firms, the Magic Circle firms, certainly corporate panels are already involved in that and in the process of going through that. It was a standard that was developed in 2023. In my opinion and the opinion of others, it needs significant revision now because the AI landscape is moving on significantly, and we've obviously got agentic AI coming into play now. I would say that for most mid-tier regional law firms, 42001 is currently a little bit overkill. But its time will come, I'm sure of that. The firms that build their auditable human-in-the-loops governance and compliance frameworks, effectively that becomes a great foundation step for when you do want to go down the accreditation route. I've also noticed as well, we've talked about Lexel accreditation, which many of you will be involved with, which many of you will have. As far as I know, there may be some Lexel accreditation experts in the audience today. There isn't yet been a specific AI overlay for Lexel accreditation, but I think it's only a matter of time before there is. And again, documented governance frameworks means you'll be well ahead of those firms that will be starting from scratch. And if you look at what's happening across the other professions as well, you've talked about their RICS, the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, have already published very strict AI guidance for their members around human oversight in their processes. And this month, 2nd or 3rd of April, I think it was, the Financial Reporting Council, which is the governing body, one of the regulatory body for accountants, has published some new guidance specifically for audit firms using generative and agentic AI tools. And there's a lot of generative and agentic AI tool use in the accountancy profession. So surveyors, accountants are already moving in that direction. It's only a matter of time before the SRA moves on into the next phase for that. So the question really is whether your firm is ready for when it does. You're not building governments for one regulator, you're really building foundations for the future. Build it once and it'll work for all of them. And that brings me neatly to Heather. and what she's going to tell you about, because once these foundations are in place, you can have a proper look at what becomes possible. And so Heather's now going to take you through the art of the possible.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very much, Richard. That was really, really interesting. I'm scribbling notes myself using my AI tool, of course.
Of
Um,
course.
of course. Okay, so I just want to show you some demos. I want to show you this stuff in action. Like I was saying before, people don't know what they don't know. Let's see this, particularly, Richard's referred to agentic AI. So let's have a little look at what this looks and feels like. A lot of these terms feel very technical. Our business is called AI for Non-Techies for a reason. We simplify it right down. But it really is, it's fairly intuitive. It's accessible once you've got the kind of core AI literacy set as well. So I have planned a few demos. Now, a little bit of a caveat. This is live demo territory. Things can go wrong. Generative AI, like everything else, is a little on the temperamental side. So I would say about 25% of the time it will just refuse to do what I rehearsed about an hour before the session. So bear that in mind, and let's hope the live demo gods are smiling upon us today. So I'm actually going to go completely out of this presentation just for a second. Okay, and we're going to go over to Copilot. And so I want to show you a few different things. I'm going to show you first of all, whoops, we've gone over here, due diligence and intelligence. So of course, these are just examples. You can go into far more detail. I'm using example information as we go. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to work completely in Copilot, and I'm using the paid for edition. I've got the Copilot for Business edition. So I run a small business, but this looks very similar to the enterprise version for those who are here from bigger firms too. This is the paid version. This is not just your Copilot chat. You can do a lot with Copilot chat, and it's a really good place to start. But all the good stuff, all the agentic stuff unlocks when you get the paid version. So first things first, you go into all agents. And then you would find, and now I've already got this open, but because I use it regularly, but within the built by Microsoft section, you have all of these agents that are pre-built for you, as it says, by Microsoft. You click on Researcher, and that opens this rather lovely tool. Now, Researcher is their version. So if anybody's used the deep research function on ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude before, this is Copilot's version. What that is a really strong PhD level. It feels like a team of researchers. What it does, it goes out and it does hundreds of different searches in sources specified by you. You can specify the sources, the dates, whatever you want. You can put in a really, really long set of instructions and it can follow it. It takes around about 10 to 15 minutes. So I've pre-done this in advance, a little blue Petery. But what we've got now, it used to just work on the OpenAI model. So this is what ChatGPT uses. It's good, but what's better is Claude. And very recently, they brought in two new functions. So now your research report is produced by OpenAI, by the ChatGPT model, and then Claude comes in and checks it. This is called critique. It's on automatically. So if you're on auto mode, it is there. I'll show you how that works in a second. You also have another function called Model Council, again, brand new, just a couple of weeks old. And this is where it will produce one report by Claude, research report, one of the same research reports by ChatGPT. And then there's a third AI, which is run by OpenAI, that will actually review both of them and tell you what's where both of them agree and where they disagree, which is very powerful, but a little bit more advanced than what we're showing today. So this is critique. You don't need to do anything. You just need to go onto researcher. So what I'm going to do is go to, I'm just going to put in a short prompt. Now my research prompts are usually a lot bigger, but I just want to show you more the action than the prompt. So I'm saying analyse this due diligence briefing pack for a £42 million acquisition of just a made up Greenleaf Technologies. We want all risks ranked by severity. For each risk, we want to explain what the risk is, which section it appears in, what further info is needed, and who should follow up. Then we want a 300-word exec summary, suitable for a supervising partner, and then 10 follow-up questions the due diligence team should be asking the targets management, grouped by work stream. And bear in mind, this is just an example. You put in exactly what you would like. So I'm just going to put / and it links us because this is Copilot. It's grounded in all of your files. And I'm going to click onto files and I can find, hopefully, there we go. There's our due diligence briefing pack there. So it's linked in. I don't need to attach anything. It already knows, and it's getting much, much better at knowing what you might want even before you're able to find it too, but that's a whole separate session. So what you just then do is click go. wait around about 10 minutes and you end up with a report. But as I say, here's one I've done earlier to save us sat here waiting for 10 minutes and watching this working. So this is an agentic. This means it's got agency, it's got autonomy. So it thinks through the task. So this is exactly the same as I've just showed you. It's first of all asking questions, and this is a new sign of intelligence. It's got your instructions, and as an intelligent human would do, it's asking some questions and getting some clarity. So I've just responded to those questions, asked for a longer research report, 5+ pages, and then it's given us this report. It took around about 12 minutes. And this is what it did. So this first thing is reasoning completed in 33 steps. It shows you this agent, how it thought, how it tackled this task in detail. So you can see, you can work through exactly what it did step by step. So if it's gone wrong in any way, you'll be able to say, oh, actually, it went to the wrong source, or it used the wrong methodology. So you can see exactly what it did. You can see its thinking. So he actually says, I'm not quite sure this bit is good enough. This source doesn't seem to be complete enough. This isn't new enough, relevant enough. So you can see where it steered itself away. This is the agency in action. This is the agentic AI in action. So instead of what we've had up until recently, which is ask a question, it will predict an answer for you based on sort of sources it deems is okay. It's now thinking a lot more, which is what that time is for. And we end up with this report. So it's created the report, and then Claude as a second AI model, and this drastically improves the quality of what you get. It's generated by GPT. It's refined by Claude. You've got two AIs working together. This is new. This is amazing. So you end up with this report, the exact report we've asked for, and it's of decent length. We've asked for 5+ pages. Everything is linked. So whenever there's a fact or assertion, it's linked back to that document that we've given, that pack. So it's showing where it's drawn the information from. We've got our key points here. We have our financial summary table, key contracts overview, everything we asked for, all of those risks. And now let's not forget, we're also in a conversation here. So if we wanted to ask a question, if we wanted to expand on a section, if we wanted to push back and say there's not enough detail here, we can absolutely do that as well. Now also, and this is very, very long, so let's scroll just for a second to get to the bottom of it. When we've got this information, it will now offer, do you want this converted into Word? So you have a nice report, and we'll see what AI can do in Word in a second. Do you want it in a PowerPoint, PDF, or an infographic? So it's actually, I've just clicked on PowerPoint, left that around about 2 minutes, and it's created. Now we're getting better control over the branding of the results here. So very, very soon, it's kind of slightly there, but not fully there. The resulting PowerPoint will be in your brand and adhere to your house style. But yes, so we've got this here now, we've got this whole presentation. So if you wanted, you're a bit more of a visual learner, you want this back, or you want something you can able to share with colleagues, it's built this for you. It's often built in almost like a video form too. So everything, all of that report, it's done. That's short set of instructions, the pack, and then the presentation at the end. So yeah, Copilot used to get a bad reputation, and actually rightfully so. It wasn't very strong. Around about 6 months ago, they kicked off, and they've absolutely shot ahead. Really, really impressive. It's what our company uses. AI for Non-Techies, we use Copilot as our tool. So that just says it all, really. Okay, so that's one example. So there's lots of things you can do. You can interact with that information as much as you like. You can build all sorts of different documents off the back of it, but just showing that as an example. The next one I want to show is panel tenders and pitch decks here. So again, just a very broad example. But what I want to do is draft a tender response in Word to begin with. So I'm going to hop over into here. I'm going to hop into my apps and open up Word. So a lot of you will have seen these new boxes in Copilot, might not know exactly what it can do and had a little play. This is where I say that it's fairly intuitive, but you do need some core skills to understand where it fails and where it's good. So let's open up. So let's have a little look. So we're going to go into a blank document to start off with. Okay, and then I'm going to click on this lovely little rainbow button in the panel. So you've got two options really. You've got it at the top. I've just moved it, or you can have a little look here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in another little prompt. So it's very similar from what we've done before in that we're recalling a file. So we're just going to / to recall the file. We're going to open up our demo number 2 if I can find it. I thought this might happen. There it is. There's our RFP, and we're going to put a little prompt in there as well. So here we're saying using this RFP from Meridian Group, Draft a panel tender response for a mid-tier UK law firm called Whitfield and Partners. It's got 180 lawyers. We're just basically giving some background, but structure the response to match the submission requirements. I'm actually going to get this going while I'm reading this out, so it's got time to work. And this is a really important thing about AI now. It needs time to work. We're used to Google these zero point 0.1 seconds response. When we speak to a computer, we ask something, we get something back in 0.1 of a second. AI needs time to think, to do a good job. Quick AI is pretty poor. When it's got time, it can actually work really well. So we've said include a firm overview and sector credentials, proposed team with brief bios, 3 relevant case studies, and the firm's approach to AI and legal delivery. We want a confident, client-focused tone. You can preset the tone as well. So this is just for example purposes, and emphasize practical sector expertise over generic credentials as well. So it is actively, before our very eyes, building this now. So it's reviewing the data and it's building it. If, again, there's any parts of this that you don't like, you are in a conversation. So you can either chat, so this little button here, this will chat directly with the document. I don't like this bit, change the spelling, remove any incidences of these words. I was a legal PA for a really long time, 12 years. And if we'd have had this capability, this would have saved me months of work. But yeah, so it can go in and can change things, and or you can just chat only, and that can sort of access the internet and do all of that type of thing that you'd normally do in a basic chat. So it's going through and it's building this for us. So this gives us this main document that we can use. But what I want to show you is what else we can do with this information. So what we're going to do, I've prepared one earlier because this is a little bit hiccupy at the moment, but let's see if we can do this live. Is I've hopped over to PowerPoint, and we're going to use Copilot in PowerPoint, which is, again, the new agent version. So we've had the ability to build presentations before, just a one shot. So we ask it something, it does it, everything else is human. Now we can go back and forth. So what we're going to do in a blank presentation, we're going to create a new presentation with a file, and it should pull out. There we go. There's our document that we've just created. There we go. So I'm just going to do that. We're just giving it a reference file. We want a presentation about this, okay? Again, don't forget these are examples. We can tighten up the branding. We can tighten up the tone of voice. We can give much more detail as to what we want. I just want to run it through. So the first thing it will do is organise an outline for you. So it's saying, do you like this outline? If you want, you can get rid of things. You can move things. You can change it around, whatever you like. I'm happy with this outline. Then you pick your presentation. So here is where your brand will live. So you just set up a template, house style, and then it will adhere pretty well to this. Not perfectly. It definitely does need tidying up afterwards. But they're working on everything so hard. I think that's just a matter of months before that adheres perfectly. So let's just pick one. I'm just going to let's go for that sort of lemony. In fact, let's pick something different because we had that before. Let's go for this sort of, let's go for this sort of style, citation style. Okay, so we pick this. We can also pick where our images come from. So if you want stock images from the 365 library, you can have those, or you can have AI generate them. Now, we'll say you've got a few fairly limited choices, but let's go for this kind of flat design, that sort of vector style design that we've had before. Okay, and it's building it right in front of us. Now, this bit does take a little while. I'm going to see how sometimes it's quick, sometimes it sort of lags a little. I'm conscious of our timings and we want to answer some questions. So I am going to actually nip out. I'm going to nip out and try to show you again one I've done earlier. Okay, so if we hop back into PowerPoint, I had preloaded one. Okay, so we've got it over here. Oh, that's our other one, isn't it? That's the one we've just created. Whoops, I'm losing myself maybe. Oh. Maybe it has created it over here. No, let's go back. Let's go back and find it. We have created one. There we go. That's it. There we go. So this is what it created. So this is in the exact style that we've picked, that template, and we've got those flat sort of images in there as well. I happened to pick this earlier. I didn't realise I picked the same two versions. So you can see it's created this pretty decent thing. And of course, this is PowerPoint. We can jump in. We can change whatever we want. If we want to change anything globally, we can just jump in here and we have that same Copilot agentic ability. We can change the style. We can change the overall feel. We can change it to a different client. It is amazing. And don't forget, this can work on your existing presentations as well if you wanted to pick something up and change it ever so slightly too. So really, really powerful. Now I'm just going to do one more because of timing. So I just want to show you policy drafting from a brief as well. So back over to Microsoft Word. Okay, so let me just grab my prompt from over here. Okay, so we're just going to go over back into our Word and we're going to do another blank document. Okay, and this time I'm going to use this top function. It's no different from clicking on the ribbon. You can just describe what you want, but it can do all sorts of things. It's kind of got a bit of an assistant up at the top for when you are drafting documents. But let's get a brief on a generative AI policy that we're drafting for a client. Okay, so I'm just going to add in some instructions. So using this client brief from Brampton Holdings, again, you can actually add a file if you wanted to there, but let's just / and let's get in our files, we should have our demo 3. There we go, our policy brief. Okay, and we're asking it to create, cover all 8 areas the client's requested, plain English, etc., etc. So it's just going to build this document for us from scratch. And it should be fairly quick. If not, of course, I have one that I built earlier. You've got to learn these things as an AI trainer. Either it breaks or it takes a long time. And again, as I say, that's a really important thing. This is something we're not used to with any of our technology. We're not used to just being sat there. So we tend to go off and do something else. But this is the agency. It's working on its own. So we can go off and do something else. We can be doing 2 jobs at one time. There we go. So it's building this a generative AI acceptable use policy based on the brief that we've given it. And you can give multiple files, by the way. Okay. And then what you can do when that is built is you can open up your Copilot and you can change sections, you can edit, you can do whatever you like. So yeah, some really, really strong use cases, as I say, example use cases that you can do use Copilot for. The other one was a meeting minutes that I was going to show you, but it's a fairly similar thing. So I uploaded, I would have uploaded some raw meeting notes as a document, just open the document in Word, and then you can use Copilot to revamp it, to style it out, to make it look more official, to take out any spelling mistakes, all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, so hopefully some useful demos for you there. So when it comes to AI adoption, just very quickly, I want to take you through our general training framework. This is where we work with our clients. So we generally start with motivating people. This is an emotional topic. So you need to level the playing field. We spoke at the very beginning about there being these small groups of champions. Lots of people, I think this is something we hear all the time on calls for training, which is we have people, some people are really, really into it and some people are totally resistant. It's emotive. We're reading newspaper articles that are saying it's going to replace us. A lot of people are resistant. They're scared. They're overwhelmed if they are into it. There's so much, it's my full-time job and I'm overwhelmed pretty much every day. I'm sure, Richard, you feel that too. I think we've spoken about that before. There's so much of it. It's moving so quickly. So you need to kind of create this level playing field by assessing where people feel, where they are. Having this kind of almost tool amnesty, where are you using it? Make it sort of almost inconsequential that they can be using AI tools, because actually they're probably much further ahead than you think and they know what works and what doesn't. So creating a safe place to say, actually, I used ChatGPT for this and I got really good results. If you can possibly create that, that's very, very strong. So having discussions, open, safe usage, and it's kind of top down and bottom up as well, showing what's possible, showing where you've made mistakes. And we can do that. We generally do that sort of opening keynote type of thing, or virtual keynotes. Then we go in and we build AI literacy and core skills. So these are very, very, very based on the tool that you're using, what's possible, what can you do, what should you look out for, how do you speak to it, how do you build these things, these agents, how do you use notebooks, there's all sorts of different things. So those core skills and understanding what it actually is. And then once you've got those skills, you integrate it into those real workflows. So for us, we have discovery calls in groups. We understand the pains and problems. And then we integrate what we've learned and go, right, okay, here would be a great place to use AI and this would be a really bad place. And then you scale safely. So a lot of the firms we're working for are starting to think about internal talent, training their own trainers. They realize how big this is. So it's something we can help you with as well. So it's to motivate first. Don't jump straight into this. So many people jump straight into this. Let's just use AI in this department. You need to discover, you need to start off with that motivational piece, understand this is an emotional topic, level that playing field, build the literacy and core skills, then go into integration and then look at scaling as well. So just there's a bit of a shift from, we can't use AI until we're sure it's safe. And to we've built the foundations and now we can move fast. And hopefully you kind of see how that would work with governance and with training. Our people don't know how to use it. That's a frequent thing we hear. But this type of the work will help you feel like our people are trained and confident. And we'll get to AI eventually. Imagine being in a place where you feel you're already ahead of most of your firms and your competitors. So next steps, and then we'll get to some questions. I can see we've got quite a lot of questions here. If Richard, actually, if you want to tell people what they would get from an exploratory conversation with you, and of course we're happy to
Sure.
work together too.
Absolutely, yes. So yeah, from my side today, if this has raised any questions about where your firm stands on the governance and compliance issue, I am offering a free, confidential, exploratory conversation. There's no agenda, no sales pitch. We just look at where you are, what priority pressures are for your specific firm, because they are a little bit different, and what a sensible next step looks like. And the QR code that you see there, that will link you to my page to book a chat. And if you're here live today, you'll also be getting my law firm AI compliance checklist, which is a 10 question with 10 questions in which you can score your current compliance position, 3 sections: people, process, and proof. That'll give you a feel of where you are on your compliance and governance journey. So thank you for everybody for listening to today and for your time today. And over to you, Heather.
Lovely stuff. So yeah, if your firm is rolling out Copilot, thinking of rolling out Copilot, come and have a chat with us as well. We've got a huge range, particularly fee. We've just launched a Copilot, Ultimate Copilot for Work course for legal fee earners and also for professional services support teams as well. So not just generic courses. We've built these with you in mind. So there's we'll put a link in the chat too. But I realise we've got a couple of questions. First one from Brian is one for you, Richard. Do you think regulators are where they need to be to supervise the lawful and compliant use of AI?
No.
I was about to say
No,
no.
no, I would be surprised they would. No, I think it's like different regulators are at different stages. I think it's probably fair to say that most of the regulators are a little bit behind the curve. Yeah, so I think the view, and I know Heather, you've worked with financial services businesses as well. My perception is that the FCA are much more up to speed than, let's say, some of the more traditional professional bodies and regulators. The SRA being an example. I said before, the SRA is not so much of an enforcement-based regulator. But I would say that different regulators are at different stages, but none of them are probably where they need to be, and they would probably admit that as well. But Heather, you've worked with financial services people, and you found them, you said to me, you found them a little bit further ahead of the curve on a lot of these issues.
Slightly,
Yeah,
slightly, but yeah, I'd still say it's a pretty much a flat no. I think people need to work with you, Richard. The
they do.
regulators need to work with you. I think that'd be a really good idea for
Possibly,
them if anybody's
possibly
on
they
this
do.
call from a
Yes.
regulator. Yeah. So yeah, there's a couple of questions that link in together as well around the Copilot and Claude link. So Gail asked really good question. If the Copilot researcher prompt results are then checked by ChatGPT and Claude automatically, does that mean our data is being shared? Or will our privacy be driven by our Copilot settings? So Copilot has always used the ChatGPT. So it doesn't have its own version of a model. It's model agnostic apart from, they'll use everything apart from Gemini, I've noticed. I went to see a keynote recently and they spoke about just about every AI model apart from Gemini because they're the massive competitors, of course. So I'm going to assume, but I need to check. I think it's a really important thing to check that you're still covered by Copilot if you're using Copilot's paid for subscription. They have enterprise grade security, so your data is kept very much within their systems. I haven't looked at this specifically, how their terms have changed since we have Claude Critique and Counsel. So that's something I'm going to look up and check, Gail. So what I'll do is I'll check that and I'll put that in the follow-up email. So I'll speak to Dorota, our marketing manager, and we'll put the response to that in the email. I think that links very much into John's question. It would be good to hear your views on Copilot or Claude. We're now thinking to move to Claude to get more of that legal awareness or knowledge, but is Copilot with this Claude connection now okay for legal research and analysis work? So I would say for research work, it's way further ahead because you've got the power of Claude and Copilot. So when you just use Claude, you just got Claude. You haven't got, the power of other models in there. And they don't seem to be working with other models. They're very, very intelligent. Claude's models are definitely the best available right now for the general user. But I suspect that Copilot are going to work more and more with Claude, and I would hope, it's my hope, that they will flip from using ChatGPT's model, the OpenAI model, and actually just go to using Claude as their main model, because people who use generative AI all the time have seen that's just definitely, it's just more intelligent the way it works. Opus 4.6, Claude's main model, is unbelievably intelligent. But still, to chat with that, I need to use Claude instead of Copilot. So yeah, I see them fusing together pretty soon. So yeah, I would have much more faith. So if it's pure research, Copilot Researcher is definitely the best one available right now. But they all move really quickly. If they see that working, I can see that there are other models doing that too. So I'm sure that's not the strongest of answers.
Sorry to interrupt, Heather. One
Of
thing I
course.
would say is with Claude Legal, of course, there's a Claude Legal plugin now, isn't there, as well? I think the question that comes up a lot when it comes to Claude is also that and indeed Copilot is this. We talked about data security there before. I think it's this idea that the data sits in what was become termed a walled garden, when you're going into that your data is not being shared publicly and not being used as a data as learning data. So that's one of the questions I get, comes up quite a lot. But specific to Claude, and its position in the market, we're also, I don't know if you've had a look at the legal plugin, but as you know, Heather, Claude has unleashed a whole wave of plugins for doing all sorts of things. The new one that it's seems to be focusing on the legal sector as well as its word plugin. I've noticed that's being portrayed in some media as being something that's very attractive to legal use. But what it all comes back again is not just the issue of data compliance, but also this issue of auditable human in the loop. And also don't forget, of course, that all of these things, the liability doesn't lie with the tool, it lies with the firm and the individual using it. But yes, I think Claude has an interesting position in the legal sector because of the legal plugin, because of the word plugin. It's interesting how that couple of months ago, when legal plugin came out, we saw that set the cat amongst the pigeons as far as the software as a service providers, and particularly legal sectors like even I think it was LexisNexis there saw their share price affected by that, because there's a perception that these kind of tools, the Claude with plugins tools, can build personalized dashboards in a much more customizable way than you can get with conventional off-the-shelf legal software tools. That's probably a bit exaggerated, but I think that's maybe the direction of travel that we're seeing, and that's why Claude's attractive for all sorts of other reasons that we've talked about lots. But I think it's interesting how they're also targeting sectors like legal and indeed others
Finance.
too. Yeah. And
Yeah,
finance, they're doing
finance
a
and health.
finance one. They've just done a finance one, haven't they? Yeah,
Yeah, finance and health are going for the big chunky ones,
they are.
definitely. But yeah, it's all about grounding in your information. So even as a small business, we are moving everything into one space because we can then get proper context on every conversation. So if I'm asking a question, I want it to be searching my emails, my Teams chats, my files, my meeting, what I've said in meetings. That context gives it power. When you're using Claude, and say a lot of people are using, Microsoft ecosystem, and they might be using Claude separately, yeah, you can connect it, but it's never going to be as strong as that native connection that you'll have with Copilot as well. So there's an argument either side. I haven't tried the legal plugin for Claude yet, actually. It's inevitably going to be brilliant, but I think the winner's going to be the one that has access to your data and organizes it. Copilot are focusing a lot on the back end, so how your organization is structured via work IQ and a few other bits and pieces of the puzzle. And I'm not seeing as much focus on that from the others. So
Mm.
yeah, this is that's my horse I'm backing at the moment. It's Copilot. I think there's just a couple more questions in this last minute or so. Sonia's asked, are the agents in Copilot actually agents, or are they more like assistants? The answer is both. So Copilot called their assistants agents. So that agent builder that's the same as a custom GPT or a Claude project or a Gemini Gem. It's just a straight up assistant. Um, Whereas your researcher, that is agentic, that will solve problems on its own. It will be able to, it is actually able to do things and work on its own. And then we have got agentic ability within the apps now as well. So it can go off and do things and have longer conversations and maintain context. So yeah, they're definitely all moving towards actually being agentic. But yeah, the Copilot agents that you build in straight up Copilot, they're not technically agents. It's been bothering me for ages, but I'm sure that'll flip soon and they will have agentic ability. Um, Christopher Newton, Richard,
Yeah.
do you want to take this one? So to keep our
Yes.
insurers
Oh,
happy. Oh, can you see the question?
yeah. Keep our insurers happy. We've gone for purely for illegal AI, which is Lexis. This is to increase its reliability and accuracy and reduce the risk of inaccurate answers. How comfortable are you with law firms using tools like Claude GPT and Copilot? Nice to see you, Christopher, again. Nice to see you here. So yes, I think the answer is that I am comfortable if they're using the enterprise versions of Copilot in particular, but certainly the legal specific tools like legal AI and the others we were mentioning earlier. There is certainly a higher degree of compliance, but that still doesn't make them 100% compliant. We still have the issue of verifiable human in the loop, and all the issues that that come from the technical side. But generally, that's a good first step, and you should be cautious about the tools, but not overly cautious.
Okay, perfect. So brilliant. We were a minute over and we want to finish on time. Well, just about on time. So thank you very, very much, Richard, for your time. That was fantastic.
You're
And
welcome.
thank you, everybody else, for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day. Should you have any questions or thoughts, want to chat to myself and my team or Richard, please do get in touch and we will see you soon. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much.